Many of us carry a quiet, persistent suspicion that we are frauds. We walk through our lives accompanied by an exhausting inner critic, a voice demanding absolute, unwavering perfection, leaving us frozen in place. We pour our energy into satisfying this internal judge, but the constant self-criticism eventually fractures our sense of identity. It inevitably leads to a sudden, deeply disorienting question: who am I really? To cope with the sheer misery of feeling like an abject failure, we often deflect. We take our internal feelings of worthlessness and project them outward onto other people or onto life itself, simply to escape the heavy burden of self-blame. Take a look at this diagram of a geometric crystal. It represents the false sense of self-confidence created by that outward projection. It appears flawless on the surface, but the moment it faces the actual downward pressure of reality, it cracks and crumbles entirely. The source of this suffering is documented in Chapter 8 of Fear No Evil, titled The Idealized Self-Image. This self-image is an artificial psychological construct we create, and it is entirely responsible for this inner tyranny. Our exhausting attempts to be flawlessly secure are not a personal character flaw. They are the walls of an internal prison we have unwittingly built around ourselves. To understand how the walls were built, we have to trace the architecture back to its exact origin in early childhood development. This scale diagram illustrates a child's binary conditioning. When behavior is perceived as perfect, the scale tips, illuminating a direct path toward reward and affection. But if a child displays perceived badness, the connection is severed, routing instantly into a dark node representing severe punishment. Facing this extreme vulnerability, a child makes a highly logical decision. To avoid the pain of rejection and the ultimate fear of death, they construct a fake, idealized self to act as a permanent protective shield. Almost immediately, this fake self becomes a deeply held, guilty secret. Even at a young age, the individual inherently knows they can never actually be as perfect as their newly forged shield pretends to be. What begins as a highly rational, necessary survival mechanism for a vulnerable child eventually hardens. It solidifies into an inescapable, lifelong masquerade. In adulthood, this idealized self does not always look like typical perfectionism. In fact, it frequently manifests in two drastically different, completely contradictory ways. The first is the moralizer. This is a person who operates on impossibly high moral standards, striving to appear flawlessly decent, eternally loving, and completely incapable of anger. But these high standards mask a dark side. The moralizer's behavior is driven by deep pride, a total lack of humility, and a compulsive need to deny any of their present human imperfections. The second manifestation is the aggressor. This individual glorifies negative tendencies, like overt hostility or cold aloofness, mistaking these exact traits for strength and absolute independence. The aggressor leans into hostility because they are deeply ashamed of goodness. To them, any display of vulnerability or warmth is a dangerous, intolerable weakness. We can map the danger of these behaviors on a diagram of two intersecting circles. The more psychological energy an individual invests into inflating this rigid outer boundary, the idealized self, the more their inner, real self shrinks and drifts away from their core. Regardless of whether a person hides behind the moral superiority of the moralizer or the aggressive aloofness of the aggressor, the ultimate result is identical, a profound, ever-increasing sense of insecurity. Escaping this cycle requires a total reversal in how we view mental health. We have to stop viewing acute anxiety and depression as random, terrifying attacks. These negative emotions are actually highly functional, crucial warning signals. They flare up precisely when the idealized self feels questioned, threatened, or unable to maintain its exhausting facade. The path to liberation requires us to completely dismantle this false image. We have to recognize that its demands for perfection are entirely unreasonable and mathematically impossible to achieve. Ultimately, the necessary cure is genuine self-acceptance. This means taking absolute responsibility for our current messy imperfections, without exaggerating our badness and without shifting the blame onto others. Shedding this heavy burden is an operational, daily process. It requires steady self-search and the methodical, deliberate analysis of our own emotional reactions. This daily analysis is not a frustrating chore. It is an expedition. You are discovering the inherent value that already exists inside you, rather than straining yourself to artificially create it. Giving up the idealized self brings profound liberation. It is described as a psychological rebirth, finally allowing the real self to step forward and function with genuine serenity. Spiritual teachings often refer to this process as coming home. It proves that true security and a whole existence are not found in the flawless perfection of artificial armor, but in the radical, quiet acceptance of who we really are.